Hello and welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm Jason Walker, and we're doing what we always do to get together when we come and meet and have this time, and that's look at teas, taste the tea together, go through a tea tasting period, a moment of pause to kind of really enjoy and savor what we have before us, to find those treasures, to find the less than spectacular, and separate the two. We've got not a black tea, a oolong tea today that we're going to be looking at. And we do this is our regular pattern, our method, and that's a tea tasting. We've got our tea tasting equipment here, our kettle, Chinese style gaiwan. We have a Chinese style tea. We have our wine glass, which allows us to enjoy and smell the teas, look at the teas together. So let's go ahead and get this tea started. If you maybe you're not interested in a oolong tiguanin like this one, maybe there's another kind that you want to look at. Check out our future episodes page, or just click on the link above, which talks about join a tasting, where you'll find out more information about equipment, future episodes, those kinds of things. Now I've got my regular, cheap old teaspoon here. And I've put enough leaf in here that would, if you kind of, pressed it down, it would not stick. It would stay fairly flat as possible with this rounded, balled up type of leaf, and would cover, 80% of the surface of the spoon. So that should be a good amount in there. Our gaiwan here is about a 4-ounce gaiwan. Let me just close that up a little bit. Our water's been brought to a light boil, started to bubble up, kind of agitate some, hasn't got to a full roaring boil. It's allowed to cool for about 30 seconds. So it's got plenty of heat for it, plenty of heat for this type of tea. Tiguanins do well with a little bit less than boiling, but still good and warm. 180 some would recommend, up to 200 others would recommend as far as degrees Fahrenheit. So we'll set that aside, let that steep for a few minutes, and talk about this tea. Now we do tea tastings together, which means we're looking at the liquor, of course. We talk about the wet leaf, and first off we go and talk a little bit about the dry leaf. So let's go ahead and do that. Before we really get into that, I almost jumped ahead of myself. Let's introduce this tea properly. This is from GrandTea. This is their RedHeartTGY, or Tiquanin, or there are several possible pronunciations or spellings for this kind of tea. It is a oolong tea. It is from Fujian province. The tea that we have, you can get in a sample size for $1.50. This is a 2008 harvest, so this one's probably going to be replaced with an 09. A lot of your tiguanins are coming in May-ish or later, so you would not see a 2010 yet. Speaking of which, this is the time period you're going to start seeing the arrival of Chinese green teas in the next few weeks. Be on the lookout for those. The fresher they are, the more the more kick they've got to them, the more flavor, the more nuance they have. So you want to get those while they're fresh, even if you have to pay a slightly higher price for those, because in general, when you find the right tea that you enjoy, it's worth it to get it a fresher tea. This is a 2008, as we said, and it was graded a AA. I've seen some oolongs that are graded up to a 5A, I believe. Okay, so let's have a sniff of this. It's a woody sweetness to it. Not quite a cherry. A little more subdued than like an English laurel type. A shrub that's a flowering shrub. Summer, late spring, summertime, that type. It's got a little bit of, not magnolia, but and just a hint of it does have a hint of a caramel type of roasted element to it. When you look at this leaf, though, just talk about the dry leaf. These are balled, rolled up. There you can see the end of a stem or twig there. So that indicates that, like a lot of your oolongs like this kind, there are maybe more than one leaf on the tip or the end of the new branch, where you have more than one leaf together with a tip or a bud there. Okay. You have colors that are, these are pretty rich and dark. These have been oxidized more. They probably, looks like they've been given a bit more of a roast to them. So you've got some kind of olive drab. You've got a bit of kind of a grayish green, or I should say a greenish gray, more on the green side. You are getting little undertones of a red, of a rust there. Very subtle, very light, but still this one has the impression that it is redder than some of the others, than some other tiguanines or oolongs of this type. So bald, we talked about variety shapes of green, standard, but a bit more of the reddish tinge to this one than some of the others. And yeah, that takes care of our dry leaf. Caramel, I mean, you do get that roasted, almost like a baked apple in there. So I would say, yeah, a little bit of baked apple, a little bit of caramel. Probably the two strongest notes coming off of that. Fragrant, yes. A bit of a sweetness to it, yes. So nice to smell, pleasant to look at. And we move on to talk a little bit about the wet leaf. That should have been enough time to really give an initial steeping. Yes, we've got some nice leaves there, and it's worth it. It's worthwhile to develop the skill of learning to use a guy wand. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We've got our glass here ready to go. We're going to get our guy wand out here. Now with the guy wand, you will want to lean your lid so that you've got an opening over here on this side, separation between the lid and the bowl there. Of course, that gives you an opening on this side, which allows air to flow through so that you get a nice smooth pour, not a lot of dribbling there. We're going to put our middle finger and thumb on the rim of the bowl, index finger on the top to hold it in place, and we pour just like, oh, now my finger has slipped a little bit, and that can happen. You don't want to continue pouring because that means the water may not have enough flow out the bottom or out the opening, and it may flow over the sides here, spill out and get your fingers. So you want to stop and readjust that. And we pour and have to turn towards you if you need to get those last few drops out. There we are. Set that aside because we are going to be looking at our wet leaf. And we're doing that. Get a little bit of a smell first as well. Those roasted kind of notes or hints that we got in the dry leaf have really started to come out here in the wet leaf. Bit of a smoky type of almost kind of a charred or smoking pine needle type of smell. A little bit. Little hints of like a honey roasted peanut. Yeah, so you got a little bit of pine tar in there, a little bit of roasted peanut are the two warm, toasty notes coming off of this. When you look at the wet leaf itself, let's talk about some of these and pull a few of these out. Nice large leaf here. Seeing if this one's going to come apart. Let me put that one to the side. So you got a nice full size, and these leaves you can see at this point are richer, darker green looking. So let's set that one there, let that one rest. That leaf is mostly intact. It's got a few rough spots on it. This one's hasn't fully unfurled, so it's not going to really open up that much. I'll leave it there just kind of a note. Let's see if we can get any of the leaf sets that we have. Here is a leaf set. No, we talked about, we're seeing a little bit of a stem there, so that we got the impression that we had more than one leaf connected. Here's an example leaf here that's unfurling. This one's looking a little bit ragged as well. Another leaf connected to it on the other side. Well, no longer connected, but we'll set that there, and we'll set this one here, and you get the impression that these leaves they didn't, at some point, either through the age and the drying action, they crumbled a little bit, or the rolling process where these are rolled into a ball. There was some at one point or the other, there was some deterioration, there was some breakage there that caused these leaves to kind of crumble some, so that you don't have a lot of full, complete, smooth-edged leaves. Fairly, a little bit of a thicker leaf, and you get some tender, some that are more tender, some that are a little bit thicker like that. That was probably one of the thicker leaves that I actually bit on there. So that gives us a clue as to the wet leaf itself. Okay, and now we go to our actual liquor here. Give it a swirl around a little bit. You can see a nice honey color there, rich, almost leaning towards the amber, so it is a warm honey looking color there. The roasted peanut notes are coming out of the aroma of this one, especially. A bit of a sweetness in there. A bit of that peanutty honey roasted peanut taste is also in there as well. The first impression there, the body was not very heavy, was not very thick feeling, and even the aftertaste compared with other tieguanins, initially it seemed to drop off. Let's give it another shot and see what we can get though. Nice sweetness in the background and the aftertaste to the back of the palate, back of the mouth. Okay, this aftertaste carried longer than that first one, so that was probably not the best evaluation. That first one, second one giving us more. Still kind of lighter on the body. Not a lot of bitterness to comment on. No bitterness really. Astringency, yes, it's going to have. It's on par with the astringency of others. So we talked about the aroma, the taste, the aftertaste as well. When we put all these things together, we had, kind of starting from dry leaf to the liquor here, we had reddish tinge to our color. We had some nice warm type of sweet notes, toasted type of notes coming off of the dry leaf. We went over to the wet leaf. We still got a lot more of those heat, those toasted notes. We saw that the leaves looked like they had some either some age or some wear on them, so that they were not fully intact there. And then we got to our liquor, which had some. Which of course, did have a sweet note to it, that especially towards the back of the mouth, back of the palate. Still had some roasted type, honey roasted type peanut notes to it as well. We had little to no bitterness. We had on par with other theoguanines as far as astringency goes. And with aftertaste, faded off, or I should say, it faded off a little bit on one of our sips there. Our aftertaste, and I should say the body did not have the thickness, that feel to it, that silkiness that some have. So when we look at this tea as a whole, we would probably give this tea something like, I would probably give it an 89. It's got some nice qualities to it, that sweetness, that honeyed element to it. But overall, we just didn't really have the nuances. It didn't have, some of them will have a tinge, ease over towards a more floral element to it, but this one did not. What else? A little bit thicker on the body. A little bit, could have extended more on the aftertaste as well, so that we could have had a more rounded, fuller tea there. So, something that you may want to look at, again, this was in '08. Check out each year can affect each season, each growth climate or situation, I should say, each harvest period. These have different impacts on the tea that you get in front of you. So if this is not the year or the harvest that you really prefer, go back to it. Compare it year after year so that you can look at your notes and say, oh, the weather this year really had an impact on this tea. The harvester or the processor maybe gain a little more skill so that I can detect that these leaves look a lot nicer than for years past. All these things can have an impact, and it's our job here at Walker Tea Review to kind of taste them, pull those notes out, and enjoy those teas together. Enjoy the adventure of finding those things together.